Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas or opinions expressed by myself, the guest, or a caller may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It's the state of giving and receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. So what then is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to a more complex human being, living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier. And today is a huge day. Not only do we have an amazing guest, an old friend of mine, a channeler that a lot of people love, it is also a day that I make some great announcements for both the show, the network, and ET Whisper. So let's get that out of the way. And then we're going to bring our wonderful guest, Daniel Scranton, in. First of all, the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. We've got some guests coming up here in the near future. Unfortunately, next week, our guest is not going to be able to make it, so we're trying to move some things around. Ruben Langdon might be able to jump in. If not, Ruben will be on a little later. The week after that, we have the Adam Twister, who you guys have been waiting to see in the comment section. He's been here every day, and not a lot of people know who he is here, but you will get to know him and his amazing story. On the 30th of this month, we have Ryder Lee, who does his own podcast, Raised by Giants. Amazing guy. I was on his show a couple times recently, and a lot of you guys were over there supporting it, loving it. And then we have some shows in December that we have not yet scheduled. We're waiting back on a few people, except for the one on the 28th. The 28th is going to lead us into our network announcements, because on the 28th, I am going to be doing a simulcast where the shows will come to mix. The Matrix Mind Media and myself will be doing a show together. Matthew is a good friend of mine, a great guy. He runs the Matrix Mind Media, but that brings us to this announcement. As some of you who are on the Matrix Minds Facebook page, welcome to the show. We're live streaming there tonight live, which is amazing. After this, if you go to the Matrix Mind Media, he is running a show tonight right after mine is over, and it's going to be amazing. I will be there in the comment section hanging out, so you guys will check that out. I'll drop the link in the chat, and the link to the website is there already in the description. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour, being part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network, the network itself is extended quite well. We're working with a lot of people now. The Conscious Awakening Network, which is the internet media application, website, Apple. I can't remember what the other one is. Roku is one of them. Amazon Fire is another one. We're on all of those there. The Forbidden Knowledge Network, we will be uploading all of our shows to there, and the Conscious Awakening Network soon. And we're going to be working with Matrix Mind Media from now on. So this show is getting out to a lot more people than just this channel now, which is something amazing. And this week being the first week in the Matrix Mind Media is a great blessing. So thank you, Matthew. Thank you for that show. And thank you for letting us use your platform to expand our own shows in and help get people to your show too. It's an amazing thing. Hello, everybody in the chat. Welcome. ET Whisper announcements. I'm trying to make them as short as possible, guys. I know we've already been on 5 minutes, but we have the course that is still live there, the Healing Sexuality course, which is an amazing course. We're already 2 out of the 4 weeks into the course, but if you still want to go and get it, you can be part of the Q&A that's coming this weekend. Get your questions in about the first 2 weeks. You can also have access to all of it, and it's a for life access. You'll get it till the time ends and the internet is no more, or humans are no more, whichever comes first. In this body, we're not guaranteeing it for other incarnations if you forget your password. So remind yourself of that, guys. We're going to play. There's Matthew right there. Matthew Turner from Matrix Mind Media. Thank you so much, brother, for allowing us to use your platform. Thank you, brother, for being here. We're gonna play, guys, a real quick clip um, of the actual course that's happening right now, and you guys can check it out. We also will put the link to that in the description for all of you who want to. So it's a real quick clip, about a minute, and on the end of this clip, we're bringing in our wonderful guest, Daniel Scranton. I'll tell you a little bit about him after the clip's over. Thanks, guys, for being here. I love you guys, and what an amazing, amazing co-creation tonight with all of you. Thank you for being here, guys. All right, let's roll the clip. Here we go.
Looking through the construct, the technical attributes of the human sexuality, the energetic mechanics of co-creation, creation, individual understanding, part of the energy fields the human collective consciousness as a singular entity into your collective consciousness. Sexuality affects all beings.
All right, guys, that was a little clip. We have longer clips, but we didn't want to beat you over the head with this thing because our guest tonight is an amazing guest. Daniel Scranton is a verbal channeler, a spiritual teacher, and a sound healer. He's been channeling the 12th dimension, non-physical collectives known as the Creator since the fall of 2010. Those of you who are old school followers of this show have seen both Daniel and the creators and the Hathors and many other beings come through on the shows that we did together on the Enlightenment Evolution's earliest incarnation. So you guys have seen that, and we're going to try to get a lot of the old shows archived so you guys can go check them out if you weren't around during that time. Um, since then, a wide array of guides and collectives have spoken through him. Some of those include Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, uh, Quan Yin, Yeshua, the Hathors, the Pleiadian High Council of Seven, the Arcturian Council. He's also discovered his ability to channel light languages using healing overtones, also uses ability to help others heal themselves and manifest reality they desire. And Daniel works with individuals or one-on-one sessions, does group events, teachers, varieties of classes, including channeling classes. Daniel does channeling classes all the time. If you guys want to learn how to channel, I always suggest to people, he's one of the great teachers of channeling out there. So, Daniel lives on the island of Maui with his lovely wife, Maricris, and their daughter, Thaléa. And I hope I said that right. If not, you can correct me in a minute here, Daniel. His daily channelings can be found all over the internet. And you can always go to his website, check it out. We've listed both his website and his channeling course that he's working on, the largest course. But let's bring him in to talk to the man himself. Daniel, hello, welcome, brother. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Rob, it's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Oh man, I'm so glad to have you on. It's been a long time since we've done this. It's been years, brother.
I know. We had that in-person channel panel event. It was about 5 years ago, right? 2017,
Yeah, 2017.
December. Yeah, that was fun.
That was amazing. That was on New Year's Eve, and that was
Mm.
great. And we had a lot of great channelers there. And it was my first time after talking to Daryl for many years to be able to meet him, and spend a little time with him and his wife. And yeah, and we got to see all of our old friends there too, people that we had seen for years before, which was really nice, and meet Karen in person too, which was great.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
since then, you've been a busy man, and we'll get into some of that a little bit later here. But before we do, I want to start off the same way that I start off with everyone. You have a story, and your story has been well documented. You've shared it many times in many ways with many people. And it's a beautiful story, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of that as we go. But the thing I really want to understand about every guest who comes into the co creation here with me, what opened you to be the person that you were, that was available to have that story? What made you the Daniel that was open up to the possibility of becoming a channeler? What things in your childhood, your early adulthood, teenage years really opened you up to develop the sense of person that could be a channeler?
Well, I'm sure it was all the stuff that, hurt me. All the things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to go in life, um, including my earliest memories of God, which, God was to be feared, God was scary, and, um, my faith in, Catholicism turned me into a bit of a tortured soul because I always felt like I wasn't good enough. I was a sinner. I better not think that thought, or I'm gonna go to hell. So it starts with a lot of pain, a lot of like misfortune, and I went from that. I did a video about all of this that's 45 minutes long that tells my whole story, and it plays, automatically when you go to my YouTube channel, and, but the shortened version of it is that that led me to, I think whenever something is really painful, eventually, we sort of realize, "Hey, I should stop doing this or turn away from this." So I sort of turned away from Catholicism as soon as I entered, my freshman year at Boston University. I was a person who, as a teenager, who had his own car and his own license, would drive himself to church. That's how, that's how ingrained it was into me.
Yeah, you were hardcore then.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but but I went, and, never felt like I had a relationship with Jesus or anything like that. It was just like, this is the fear-based, thing that I believe in, and, I better believe in it or else. Um, but, I learned in my freshman year at BU that these stories in the Bible, they're not exclusive to the Bible, that a lot of different cultures and, beliefs touch on the same stories. And so that started me questioning it all, because growing up Catholic, I didn't know anything about anything else other than that. The idea of like people of the cloth getting married was completely a foreign concept to me. So once I started to move away from Christianity, I moved into atheism, and I'll tell you, atheism also was not fun to be, because I would be sitting in my apartment in my 20s in Hollywood, and I'd be thinking about, well, if that's all there is, like I die and I go in the ground and that's it, that sucks too. And so I'd get like these horrible feelings of fear in my body, and I'd be like, time to stop thinking about this, you know?
Yeah, that's
And
intense.
what also happened, yeah, in my 20s, was I started getting really tired. I started to experience, like, extreme tiredness, just even with, like, plenty of sleep, so that's when I discovered meditation. It wasn't even I didn't even know it was meditating that I was doing. I just was like, if I lie down for 20 minutes, I feel better. So why don't I go lie down? And then I realized, like, hey, rather than set an alarm clock that will go off in 20 minutes, why don't I see how many breaths it takes to breathe in 20 minutes? And I'll just count my breaths. So I
Wow.
taught myself how to meditate being completely asleep. Like I had no the only exposure I had to new agey stuff my whole life was Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, which I saw on my little black and white TV set in, whenever that was on, I think it was on ABC miniseries. But that was it. That was the only thing I ever encountered. So I didn't know meditation. And I was meditating before I was awake. And so I I had to meditate. If I didn't meditate, I was a walking zombie of just really because when I get tired, I'm just not happy either. Like I just kind of drag my body around and so I needed to meditate to because caffeine didn't help. I couldn't nap. So it was like this perfect convergence of things to get me to meditate before I even knew anything about spirituality. I think because I was such a consistent meditator, um, this channeling thing could happen, and also I became obsessed with, channeling once I did wake up. So I was, like, going to as many channeling events as I could, and I was absorbing all the energies and everything, and I didn't even again, I didn't know that that's what I was doing by going to uh, these workshops all over the world.
I
Um
don't want to interrupt you, but you bring up that, and it reminds me of the clip, and I don't know if it still exists, but you're there at an Abraham channeling, Esther Hicks Abraham channeling course, and you're asking Abraham about this new thing that's happening to you, and it ends up being
Oh,
your channeling. Is that clip
I
still
didn't
exist
know
somewhere out there?
I didn't know that that ever made it to the internet. Honestly, I remember being there for it, but I didn't know that it ever got, spread onto the internet.
Well, it was
So,
early when you first started channeling. I
yeah.
can't remember who showed it. Some one of our acquaintances, mutual acquaintances,
Um,
must have. But I had showed you long ago, and you're like, "Whoa, that's crazy." I remember that. But it was something about how you had shared about the noises and the sounds that were coming from you, and you felt this energy
mhm,
there. And it was
yeah.
actually quite amazing to hear you on one of those older recordings
Yeah.
going through your initial process.
I was such a huge Aber that, like, I was in the hot seat 7 total of 17 times, and, at their workshops, and somebody thought I must be an audience plant, and they would write, like, in the reviews to the because they sell the DVDs of the workshops on Amazon, or at least they used to, Jerry and Esther used to, and, um and somebody was like, "This guy must be an audience plant." He said, "He's in Phoenix, and then he's in Nashville, and what is he, a billionaire?" Like, and he asks such amazing questions, like, they must be giving him those questions. So yeah, so that was pretty funny, and, and I really wish I had gotten to know, Jerry and Esther better when I was doing all that, but I only knew them, like, in brief moments of, like, conversation, but I really wish, because I especially loved, Jerry because I felt like I knew so much about him as a person and, like, what he stood for and how he lived his life, and his whole story is fascinating. I mean, that was one fascinating dude, who passed on, I think, 2011. But
Yeah, I
anyway.
didn't know a lot about him until I met Kalina. I didn't even know who Esther Hicks was until after I
Really?
met Kalina. Yeah, I was that detached from most, like I knew Daryl Anka and Lee Carroll and like
Huh,
Magenta Pixie, and that was it. When I first started channeling, I bumped into these people while I was trying to figure out what was going on with me. But
yeah.
uh, when I heard about him, you're right, he was an amazing dude.
Yeah, and, I'm always surprised when people don't know who Esther is, because at Esther's workshops, they'll they would get, like, 500 people. After The Secret came out, everything really exploded for her, even though they cut her out of The Secret.
Yeah, I
You
heard
know,
about
it
that too. That
was
was a bad
initially,
little
like,
deal.
all Esther, and then it became, like, everybody but Esther. Um, and, yeah, it still resulted in their workshops being 500 people and her books being, like, almost like, her books would launch and almost be the number 1 seller on Amazon. They'd be, like, 2nd or 3rd. And, yeah, so she's huge, but, and deservedly so. That's the cool thing too about the channeling world that you and I are part of, is the cream does rise to the top. You know,
Yes.
it's Esther. I think the big 3 are Esther, Daryl, and Lee, Cryon's Lee. And Lee Harris, you're good too. We love you, Lee Harris. But but Lee Carroll, I think those are the top 3 known channelers in the world, you know? Uh,
Yeah, yeah, Lee Harris is making a cut for it too. I was
oh,
surprised
yeah.
to see that he's got thousands of people popping up on his online courses, and yeah,
Yeah,
he's doing really well too.
he's
We
killing
just had
it.
him on the show too. Yeah, it's amazing. I think he'll be there and or surpassing some of those names as far as uh being well known in probably the next 5 years or so, because
Yeah,
he's grown so much just since I've met him. And
yeah.
look, and you too. I mean, I look at the amount of people that you draw in from your channeling, and I'm amazed, and um I'm absolutely thrilled that you guys are getting it in there. I took three
Mm.
years pretty much out of the public. I only took private sessions after
Oh,
Lily was
wow.
born.
Yeah.
She had a couple medical issues up front and a couple surgeries, and we shared that with everybody and kind of shared that. But yeah, it was a heck of a road. And as I've always done, I
Mm.
always prioritize the issue with the kids and medical stuff and all that. And then when I came back, I just looked around and saw everybody how well they've been doing, and I was so happy to see people, because you're one of the people who I know in the channeling community who's most genuinely excited to be a channeler. You know what I mean? Like, literally, you love the process of channeling. Like, a lot of people are like, "Yeah, I kind of fell into it." They're not always happy about the
Yeah.
attention that they get with it,
Mm.
things like that. And maybe that's from them being in the field for decades or whatever. But you're genuinely excited. So to see you do well has been an amazing thing for me too. Um, so sorry to cut you off. So as you're going through this whole process of finding yourself and going to these, and then you start channeling, what was the first thing you noticed as you started channeling more regularly into the public arena of channeling and sharing your channeling? What were some big shifts in your experience that you noticed?
Wow. Well, first of all, when I started channeling, like you said, you only knew of 3 people. I didn't know that many people who channeled at the time. So, I, you know, I had no real way of, like, getting mentorship, you know? I didn't know, like, how to get support with it. And what I had to do basically was keep on, pressing forward with it, even though I didn't always believe it was real. I thought, I'm just making this up, all the things that everybody else thinks who starts channeling. Um, with some, and Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth, thought she might be going crazy, so But the doubt thing is really hard, and when you first start out as a channeler, you have to cut yourself a lot of slack, and I realize that now. And one of the things that Bashar said to me at a workshop, which I'm sure there's also a clip of out there on the internet somewhere, because I was asking him, I was new to channeling, and I was like, "Hey, um, what's going on here? Like, what am I supposed to do?" And, and Bashar said, he said to me, "Well, do you care if it's what you're channeling is accurate?" And I said, "Well, I want it to be helpful." And he said, "That's not what I asked because it won't always be 100% accurate, but it will always be what the person needs to hear in the
Mm.
moment." And
Mm-mm-mm.
I tell people that at all my channeling classes because I want people to realize, like, look, we all want to channel the new 10 commandments and the new, emerald tablets, and we all wanna channel, like, this groundbreaking, earth-shattering stuff that's gonna blow everybody's mind, but what's really needed is the repetition of the same old thing, which is you are love, we're all one, everybody's source, we're all creating this, it's all a dream, like all the stuff that people really need to hear is what needs to be put out there. But when people start channeling, generally they start channeling what they already know, which is also confusing because you're thinking like, well, if this is what I already know and I'm channeling it, then maybe it's just me repeating what I already know. But it's when you keep at it anyway and you realize like, okay, first of all, everybody needs to realize that the main event here is the energy. It's not it's not the words, it's not the teachings, and it's not the information. It's the energy coming through the channel that matters the most, that gives the listener, the receiver, the reader of the channeling exactly what they need because they'll be getting their own downloads, they'll be having their own experience of it. And sometimes people will come up to you after an event or something and say, "Well, when they said this," and I'll be thinking, "They didn't say that." But I'm glad that that person had their own experience of it, So, that's the important thing, and that's what I had to get through, and everybody has to get through is that and also that it doesn't come out as smoothly as we would all like it to initially. There's a lot of uhs and ums and stopping and starting and pausing. And that's one thing you'll read if you read the Seth books. You'll read not you, Rob
The
Butts.
other Rob,
Rob
yeah.
Butts would say, like, in the notes, there was a pause at 9:15. There was like a 5-minute pause, and then you realize, like, oh, even the greatest channeler ever, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah, and the
as far
history of
as
the planet.
Daniel Scranton is concerned, Jane Roberts was and is the best. If she even had pauses in the midst of these, immense, channeling she was doing, then of course it's okay to not have it be as fluid and beautiful as we'd all like it to be, single take and all of that. Um, so, everybody needs to, and I hope everybody who's listening, or who will listen, wants to channel themselves and will experiment with it and mess around with it. And when you do, I hope you're very gentle with yourself, and in the beginning, because it takes time to get anything new that you haven't already heard a million times before.
That's something too that's definitely in the forefront of 95% or more of everybody who comes to first start channeling's thing is accuracy, words, truth, And there are different archetypes of people with different beliefs and different ideas of what they want out of the channeling, and that's fine. But regardless of what it is, trusting yourself and trusting the moment, trusting the exchange, trusting, it's all the first and usually only hurdle to a lot of people when they break into that. And I did want to say too, I second the greatest channeler, Jane Roberts. As far as I'm concerned, that is also correct. But
Yeah.
the thing that you said about people hearing something, when you're like, yeah, no, 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 I laughed because that's something I actually talked to with about a couple of the guests who were also channelers. There's something that I listen back to my channeling because I'm not present with it in the moment. I'm not listening to
Mm.
what they're saying, but I'll listen
Mhm.
back and I feel like, uh, because it runs through my body, because I have a relationship with Trevin Ardif, that I understand exactly what they're getting at, how they're sharing, why they're sharing,
Mm.
the nuances, ambience, all of it. And then someone will come and say, "Man, this is really great part of it." And I was like, "I never heard that." And it's funny because
Mm.
everyone does get exactly what they need out of it. The one
Yeah.
example I always think of when it comes to energy channelers is Sean Swanson. I've listened to him channel in person a few times during the channel panels, but also I've listened to a few of his videos. Um, and one thing I can say is by the time that session is done, I barely remember anything that was talked about. All I
Mhm.
remember is the vibration of happiness and love.
Yeah.
And that feeling is punches me harder than almost any channeler on the planet. I don't need to hear what he's saying. The energy behind what
Mhm.
he's channeling is that energy for me. And he's one of the few channelers on the planet that I feel that with, even though I know, that's a specific thing for me. But it's exactly what the person needs to. And I never thought of it that way, even though I understand every experience we have as human beings is created between the two people having it. So it begs to differ, or it stands to express that everyone is going to get exactly what they need, even if the information's harmful. And we've talked about that before on other shows too. But
Mm.
um, the information that uh, your guides, the creators first who came through you, and most prominently in the first few years, um, the types of things that they shared with you that personally helped you shift, what were these types of things that you, because by then you had already understood a lot of the basic fundamentals of consciousness and co-creation and creatorship. What were some of the things that they gave you a new insight into that just kind of helped you grow in a direction?
Hmm. I feel like, it was more of, you know, what helped me immensely when I was channeling initially was the fact that, uh, I knew that in order to grow as a channeler, I needed to just keep doing it, and so because of the need for that consistency, I would I would take my phone with me on hikes, and I'd go out into a forest, and I'd sit by a tree or next to a rock, and I would channel them there, and now looking back at what I was doing, I realize that that those memories I have of doing that, going off on those trails and finding a spot and channeling, those are I have so many, like, really great memories in my life now that I look back at, and that time, which was so hard too because everything was new and I didn't know what I was doing or whether I was doing it right, I'm just so glad that if it was the creators who guided me to do that, or after the creators, it was a fairy named Ophelia that I started channeling, that I discovered on one of these hikes. It's like, I've always seemed to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing and meeting the right people like you, in my life. And I do feel like, I'm not the type of person who gets a lot of messages from the beings that are directed towards me, and they're not telling me what to do.
Right.
But everything that they say through me for someone else is also for me. Like, I
Amazing
need
how that works.
oh, man, I need to get it just beaten into my thick skull, that, like, this is the way, this is how you. Because it's funny, but before we came on and I was listening to your intro and I was thinking about what it means to be awake and what it means to be enlightened and all that stuff. I mean, it's true that we're awake, you and me and everybody else here is awake spiritually, but the enlightenment is the path from the moment you awaken to the moment where you live everything that you know, where it becomes more than just what you know, it's how you live and who you are. And the it's this month marks 12 years for me as a channeler, and that journey of just those 12 years of channeling is it's remarkable. It's like putting it all into practice to be a better human being, and I'm constantly being challenged to do that by everyone in my life.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful, and you're right. 12 years. It's hard to imagine that. We both started channeling literally within a month of each other in
Really?
2010. Yeah, I started channeling publicly in December 2010. So that's
Oh,
crazy.
wow. I thought
Yeah.
you had been doing it for longer than me.
No, I thought so too, but apparently I did
It may
not.
have been December for me too, because I didn't actually put a little note in a calendar somewhere, but I know that Abraham workshop where they told me, "Yes, you're doing it, keep doing it." That was October 20 something. And then I went back to LA. That was in Asheville, North Carolina. Went back to LA. I practiced with someone over Skype 4 times a week, and at some point, I started speaking. At first, I was just doing a lot of moving, and the energy was present and moving me around, but as I've seen you and other people do, that movement of the upper body, and but back then, it was, much more there was much more tension in me and, in my face and my neck and everything. So
Yeah.
that just was, like, all my experience of channeling until I spoke for the creators the first time. They said, "We are here for you." And I knew that I didn't come up with that. I knew
Uh,
that was channeled because, it just what with channeling, I think what everybody who wants to channel, what you want to experience initially is a type of volcanic eruption that where it comes up and out of you and you don't even necessarily know that it's coming. You don't know what's going to be said. Then after that, and Rob, you're a trance channeler, so you probably have a different experience of it than I do. But when I'm channeling, because I'm conscious of it, after the initial eruption, then it feels much more like there's a co-creation going on with me and them to translate what they're giving me and do it appropriately with choosing the right words and the right analogies and everything. But I don't know what it's like for you because I don't know what it's like to be a trance channeler.
yeah, it's a bit different. I disappear completely. I spend my time with Trev, just hanging out wherever he's at. We go and we hang out. So it's totally different for me. The only thing I can say about channeling that I feel is going into it, coming out of it, and kind of an hour or so afterwards, that intensive energy is really present, and it's not draining, but it's ungrounding. And I think
Hmm.
as we have pre-agreements before coming to the earth, I think that I chose that because I knew my mental state would never have allowed me to be a part of that conversation to start with. I can conscious channel now, um,
Mm.
but I don't. I when I publicly channel, I still trans channel because it's more for me, it's more accurate and more the choice of words Ardif would choose or Treb would choose. I like them better than my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing I notice about the trance channeling is the energy, that process. When I listen back to it, someone will ask a question and I know the answer, even if I've never been exposed to that information. And that's because it's run through my body. So it becomes a part of my memory, even though I wasn't present
Mm.
during. So it's much different. And
Wow.
I always commend you. Like Kalina is a conscious channeler too. She's been putting out her videos recently. And it's rough. I don't I commend you guys because there's a lot of processing that I don't think I could do. I couldn't get out of the way enough because I'm so
Mm.
involved, and that's why I like doing this show. I get to be a part of it, whereas in the
I
trance, I'm
know, yeah.
so far back. But I want to touch something too that you had said when you were talking, about the experience and living what you're channeling, and that being the difference. Um, that when people hear that, a lot of the time they'll think a couple of things like, wow, maybe I can have my perfect life and the way I want to do if I can just figure out how to do that. Or they'll say, well, this guy's full of shit. There's nobody who can have a perfect life. And I find that people misunderstand that when channelers say that a lot. I don't think people are saying my life is exactly perfect because I've been able to follow every word of channeling. I think it's more in tune and in alignment because you're activating more of those things. I would imagine there are still times that pop up and things that happen to you where you have to take a step back and go, "What the hell?" you know, and deal with that
Mm.
as that comes in life. Has that been your experience, or has it been pretty smooth sailing?
Oh, no, no, not at all, smooth sailing. I've been through a lot in the past 12 years.
Yeah,
Um, but the the channeling aspect, the spiritual aspect of my life has been great. Um, and and, it's hard to imagine what my life would be like without it. Um, but the challenges, we all like Lisa Royal Holt, who's up there for me in terms of who's putting out great channeled messages right now.
oh, she's
She
amazing.
Yeah, she's one of the rock stars. Um, she has something with her spine. I remember that coming through in one of her channel transmissions from Sasha or Jermaine. It's like she's got some kind of issue physically that she's just gonna have. Um, and she just has to live with it sort of thing. So, and we all have that. We all have something that we're dealing with that isn't easy. Um, in spite of the fact that we channel and we do healing work and all this stuff that we tap into, look at the way Jane Roberts died.
Yeah,
It's like another thing I think I was listening to a clip of her channeling Seth or something, and it was like, you know, Seth's always trying to tell Rob and Jane all these things about their relationship with money and stuff, and yet they're always running out, and they always expect to run out of money, and then they do, and so even the great Seth was unable to make their lives perfect, Jane and Rob. And Jane died of rheumatoid arthritis after being in a lot of pain. So and in her 50s too.
yeah,
So it's definitely not. And Esther Hicks, she lost her husband Jerry, who she thought she'd have you know with her into his hundreds.
yeah,
And that was really painful. And So everybody has something that they're dealing with.
Do you think that Earth itself, as a collective, is just? Do you think all the souls that create this thing together, we all just agree there's going to be a threshold of something that each of us are challenged by? Because my perspective would be that as a soul coming into a planet that's perfect with no adversity, no
Mhm,
diversity, or no
mhm.
things to overcome would be pretty boring.
Yeah. It would be boring, and we've all had those beautiful, magical experiences in other dimensions and other systems and everything, and we came to Earth as, the proving ground. "Okay, you think you got your shit together? Well, try Earth for a few hundred or thousand lifetimes." And, yeah, so I do think that, this is ultimately the place to be though, and where the most growth experience is possible. What part of my one of my obsessions right now is near death experiences, and I listen to them as people will read accounts on YouTube um, all the time. There's like three or four channels that do that, that just, like, read a new one every single day because people post them on these websites. IANDS is one of them, and the other one is, like, NDERF dot whatever. I don't know if these are dot .com or dot .org or what, but, they'll post the written account, and then some person takes them and reads them on YouTube, and they're just amazing. And I realize that, the experience that I had in March of 2010, where I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt all this energy, it is so similar to what people describe in their near death experiences that now I kind of feel like I had a near death experience without having to go through the bad car accident or, you know, suicide attempt or all the things that people talk about leading up to their near death experience. But it's like, to be able, because back in March of 2010, I was feeling a bit suicidal at that time because I was in a lot of physical pain and a lot of emotional pain, and I just wanted out of here. And sometimes you can be given like a near death experience, even if you just think you're going to die or you're contemplating it. And I think that's what happened to me. And it's one of the and whenever you listen to someone's account of a near-death experience too, it's one of the greatest things you could possibly imagine experiencing in this human form is to is to feel all that love and to know everything is gonna be okay, and, but some people come back from their NDE and they have still, like, a terrible life to live, and then other people come back and they're completely healed of everything, and, they have all these abilities and stuff. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have, like, an easy life after you have it, but it is one of those earth experiences we get to have that's just unbelievably good, you know?
I've read a little bit about this topic as well. I don't know if you remember, but my spiritual journey started off in a spiritualism church, so they were really big into afterlife. That's their claim to fame for the church, is that when you come here, we can prove God exists because we can speak to those who have died. So that was what I initially wanted to do, was speak to the humans who had passed on before I met Treb.
Mm,
So
mm,
this was a big thing. Even the people who I met through the church or heard accountings of who went back to that shitty life that they had, they always had a different level of tolerance for the pain and suffering that they went through, or at
mm,
least a rekindled remembrance of the possibility that even once this is done, everything will be okay. So it was like a crutch, or a cane to lean on when they went through this emotionally
mm,
horrible time. I don't know if that's anything like some of these that you have read, but I haven't read for decade plus any of that material.
Well, luckily, YouTube just like they just recommended it to me one day, and I've been obsessed with these for months and months, like at least 4 months, listening to them. Other people read them so I can listen while I'm brushing my teeth and stuff. But yeah, it's, when I think about my experience, that is what I thought while it was happening. I thought, "Oh, now everything's gonna be better. Now that this is happening, like, I'm getting this." I thought I was getting this healing and everything was gonna be better in my life, and things did get better, but not all at once and not completely, not like, "Oh, now you'll never have that problem again." Um, because I did start channeling that later that same year, um, but what was I gonna say? Yeah, the moment that it was happening, I'm thinking like, I you know, "This is it, like, everything is solved now," but then I had to go through my divorce from my first wife, and I got, engaged, like, I met someone, like, so quickly after that and got engaged, and that didn't work out, and it's like things still were hard even though I had this amazing experience that I thought was gonna make everything better. Because ultimately, we don't, as much as everybody thinks they want the solar flash to come and, everything to be revealed and full disclosure and, like, as much as everybody thinks that there's some sort of cure-all, elixir, Band-Aid to put over everything, there really isn't. It's about the slow and steady crawl that we're making towards the, ascension. And in order to get there, we all have to face a lot and feel a lot, and, there's no shortcuts. There's no med beds that are gonna make everything better.
Yeah, that's unfortunately something that a lot of people have leaned on to. And we saw this in 2010, leading up to 2012. A lot of the channelings that were coming out, especially those leaned toward a Galactic Federation of Light, continue to say we're landing, we're taking out cabals, we're going to make everything better.
I don't
But
know why anyone who channels Galactic Federation of Light, it's always like I don't know.
it's always that
I've
way.
never seen any Galactic Federation of Light channeling that I've ever liked.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat exactly with you. I actually wrote like extremely large articles about it with links and dates and everything. I keep sharing it on Facebook every time I see lots of GL OF posts go up. But I remember the disappointment in our community from that. Like
Mm.
we had a mass exodus of channeling people in 2012, and whether that's by
Really?
design, yeah, like 2012, there were people lining up in channeling community for every types of channelings because this Galactic Federation light stuff was so powerful of a presence in our community. And then once the ships didn't land, everyone was like, I got gypped, I sold my property, I was told, hurricane. Some of them were like, hey,
Oh,
great winds will destroy the planet and then we'll come to save the survivors. And then the other ones were just like, don't
oh,
worry, we'll kill off the cabal for you and take over. So it was something that
uh-huh.
it was a little dark either way, but the disappointment came and people left. And that, for me, that
Wow.
hurt my heart because I was like, this community has so much to offer if you can use that discernment to get you to what's there. And I think humans in general kind of gravitate towards the savior thing,
Yeah.
like, or they gravitate to what's going to get me through with the least amount of work. So it's a
Yeah.
natural thing. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of
No, it's
natural.
true, it's true. Yeah, and that is, like, honestly, that's the message of Star Wars, if you really look at it. It's like the dark side, they wanna take all the shortcuts. They
Yes.
want the technology to do it. Anakin doesn't wanna have to grieve his wife who's gonna die giving birth. Like, nobody wants even Luke in Empire Strikes Back, they're telling him Yoda, and I don't know if Obi-Wan comes in after Luke leaves in the X-Wing to go save everybody in the Cloud City, but, they're saying that you're gonna ruin everything you're working for if you go there and you take the fast and easy route, and it's like it it's funny because a lot of people who are awake are into Star Wars too, but they don't necessarily see that the message is like it spirituality and growth, spiritual growth is about the long haul and sacrifice and doing things the natural way as opposed to like building a device with technology that can do it for you like med beds, you know? Um, it's like, no, you're supposed to take the long journey that sometimes is, lonely and requires a ton of patience, and, yeah, I just, I wish more people got that, but I also love Star Wars
Yeah.
and understand why, people could take that and misinterpret it and think like it's about overthrowing. It's about defeating, it's because it's a movie. So at the end of the day, you've got to have an overthrowing of the empire and all of that. You don't just have Luke meditating in the swamp, you know, um,
It wouldn't have
'cause
been quite the seller, I think.
no, but the thing, and I always mention this whenever I talk about Star Wars, the thing that saves the galaxy at the end of the day is that he loves his father, even though his father's this monster who can blow up a whole planet, and flies off the handle and chokes people with his mind, like he still thinks, well, that's my father. And I can feel that there's good in him still. And, he's looking at Darth, who's like the black side of the yin yang symbol, and he's staring at the little white dot. And that's what saves the galaxy, because if he didn't do what he did at the end of Return of the Jedi, then, things wouldn't have turned out the way that they did for the rebels and everything. So I think that that's missed too in all of that, that it's ultimately the thing that saves us is unconditional love. And, that is a clear demonstration of what unconditional love is.
Oh, yeah, and that's something as humans that's probably the most difficult thing that happens for us is finding an ability to have an unconditional love. I would say for me, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
ask you for yours too. Well, let's ask you, what have you experienced true unconditional love in this life, and if so, when did that happen?
Well, first I wanna comment on, you, and you being the person I know, because, you have 2 kids now that, obviously, your son, it requires so much attention and so much work on your part, and that's unconditional love in action. Everything that you've done for him and the way you cared for him and, had to struggle with his mother and all of that stuff. And then you have a daughter and she's born, and, it also, and you're also facing a lot of challenges with her and, um, her, the way that she's developing and everything. And so you you're this dad who loves his kids so much, and they're just so much work for you. Like, you have to put in so much time and love and energy as a father, and that's what, when I think about you, that's what comes to mind for me first and foremost.
Thank you, brother. I
Um,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
for me, like, I think that my new way of looking at unconditional love is also, in addition to that, that stuff where it's like in your family, you may have a family member that, you don't necessarily get along with, who gives you a really hard time, who's like mean and or, has like really weird views of the world that you have to like swallow and stomach. Um like and and you love them anyway, and you don't just like, yeah, but I love that person, they're my family member, and but real unconditional love is, I think, when you are love in the face of everything that isn't, everything that's showing up that isn't love. When you stand in the face of that and you say, well, I am love, I know I'm love, and I know that that's what I'm here to be, and to be that, even though I'm faced with this, even though this thing is happening, or this person is saying this right now, or doing this to someone else, and that really obviously is, I don't love the action or the words, but I am the love that's needed in the situation, and I'll remain that. I won't let anything that I'm seeing or hearing knock me out of that alignment with my truth of who I really am. And, yeah, I'm still waiting to get there myself.
It's extremely tough, and this last couple years has really pushed up against everybody's unconditional love. And I don't go into
Mm,
things too deeply there, but there are obviously two groups of like a divide, and that people see things drastically different. And my philosophy's always been, even if you can't understand the other person's perspective, try to understand why they feel that way or why they think
yeah,
that way. And if you can do
mm,
that, that's a step towards the best form of unconditional love that you can have.
right.
When you try to see the other side, even though it feels so wrong and feels so bad,
Mhm,
um, to love the person is huge. And I think that's a beautiful
yeah.
definition. Thank you for sharing. We're getting closer on time, so I want to get into the life that is Daniel. You have a new, not a new baby. I always say that because I'm so used to Jeremy being 23 and Lily being 3, but you have a baby who's right around the same age as Lily.
Yep.
How has being a father shifted your life? What new things have you learned by being a new dad?
Well, first of all, before we had her, my wife and I, we met, and, I almost said, "Oh, I don't wanna be a father, so we should just, not pursue this any further because I know that you do wanna be a mom." But I just couldn't pull myself away from my wife. She's just too lovable and sweet, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm along for this ride." And then, she came to me in, what was it? I forget. I forget when it was in 2019, but she came to me and she said, "I know we were talking about starting to try to have, a baby in January of next year, but she's in tears and she's like, we just have to do it now." And we literally got pregnant like either the first or second attempt. It was so fast. Yeah, and the whole time, she's pregnant, I'm still not 100% on board. And, and then we had a home birth, which was amazing, and I was right there, and they handed Thaléa, or I don't know if they handed Thaléa to me at the where I saw her. When I saw her for the first time being handed to my wife, I started weeping uncontrollably. Like like no one else in the room was crying, and I'm like, it's just I just was so emotional about it. And, it's it's one of those things where I just couldn't have known how much it would mean to me to be a dad and to have this little child to love, and at the end of the day, it's, it's all about love, everything is, and love also, I think, is a great catalyst for channeling, because when I did start channeling in, 2010, like I mentioned earlier, I had just filed for divorce and met someone, like, 3 weeks later on an Abraham cruise. It was so crazy, and fell in love over, the next, she was in England and I was in LA, and we were Skyping all the time. And then I start channeling, and it's just like, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that love is that ultimate state of being that will raise our consciousness and our vibration so much that we're bound to connect to something higher than ourselves and something that's existing in that realm that's closer to source. And so yeah, the having a child will crack open, every uh, space in the heart to let more of that love out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly, anyone who hasn't gone through that, it's hard to explain. But men are wired quite a bit differently than women because women have that energy of the baby being overlaid in their chakras. So there's literally two beings as one. And I posted on my Facebook the oneness that the mother and child have. It's actually physiologically something that's really amazing. But um,
Hmm.
as my first time dad with my son, I felt the same way. I was like, I don't even like kids. I don't want to be around them.
Hmm.
I don't like the way they smell, the way they sound. I was pretty brutal about it. I was 19, a young kid, but
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah. So I was like,
19.
no. But I was like, I'm not gonna be that guy who just walks away from my kids. So, and
Mhm.
literally the minute laid eyes on him, I fell in love, just over. And then Lily,
Mm.
I didn't know my heart could hold so much love when she came. I was like, Jesus, this is intense.
Mhm.
But it's beautiful. Have you noticed any difference in your channeling since you've had the baby? Any shift in your channeling with the extra love you're getting?
Well, I wish I could say yes, but no, I don't notice it. I've just noticed, like, working with the Arcturian Council now for the past 6 plus years has, every other, collective I've worked with, or being I've worked with, I've only done certain amount of time with, daily messages, and then I switched to a different one because I like variety just like everybody else. But with them, sticking with them for it's not a daily message anymore. Like, I'm not channeling a new message every single day like I used to, but it's 5 days a week, and I still call it daily. Those messages have evolved over the 6 years of me working with them, and I think that it takes time to build a trust even with a group or a being that you're channeling to really go into places that that might feel like it's out on a limb for you to go with. I For a long time, my channeling was never about, like, what's happening right now. It was always about, like, some kind of teaching or something. And with the Arcturians, I've been able to go there into, like, the current energies and what they're about and what the solstice is gonna be about this year, and, the 11/11 thing and all that. It's like, I have enough faith now to, like, let those types of things through. Whereas I think even when you're connected and you're channeling, you can still, hold things back and play it safe, and I did that, I think, for several years early on.
Let's talk about that because these things this is also kind of a divided perspective in our community. Some people are like, these gates, the lion gates, the portals, eclipses, all of these things are really powerful, potent events. And other people are like, well, they might be, but I just not digging it. I've heard both sides of that, but I've always noticed any kind of alignment that happens that's odd or different than the average or normal thing, any of the solstices and equinoxes, they've always produced powerful results for my own
Mhm.
psychology, my own experience. What have you found by doing this channeling with the 1111 and with all of these different gateways of energy?
Um, well, anything that will get us to focus more, and anything that gets us to recognize that there's more coming, that there's always something more for us to receive is a good thing. And I think that these dates on the calendar help bring people together too, and so you'll be more likely to see a group meditation, or some kind of ceremony, some kind of event that people do together, because there's an expectation that something will transpire, or they will receive something more, and that's a good thing. So it's um for me personally, have I noticed anything on those specific dates? I think I have, and I just don't remember any of them right now. Um, but it's usually in retrospect that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, and that happened on the full moon or the solstice or something." Um, yeah, but I used to not pay attention to any of that. I've never been able to get into astrology in the least bit. It's like it just couldn't I couldn't possibly imagine myself, like, going into that world and trying to understand it.
Yeah, it's definitely not a native concept for a lot of people in our community. I felt the same way. I always understood from Art and Tread that the heavenly bodies themselves, the planets, the stars, they all have different energies as consciousness. Like Earth is
Mhm.
one
Yeah,
being
yeah.
because all of our souls and all of that. But I never
Mhm.
understood on the level of alignment in the sky, blah blah blah. But Kalina was going through this phase of watching a lot, and there was this one guy who was on there. So I got a reading done, and I actually posted my reading on YouTube, and it brought me to the synchronicity that the energy behind all of that, whether I understand it or not, has an amazing level of accuracy for a guy who didn't know anything about me except for seeing the thing called the ET Whisper on the email. He
Mhm.
literally nailed almost all of the things in my life, and I shared it in full on my channel because it was so synchronistic and so amazing. So there's definitely a link there. There's a presence there, an energy, even though I don't understand it and don't use it as my own guide. I feel the same way. The energy of a lot of these portals have a lot to do with the attention we place on them, as
Mhm.
well as the shifts of energy with the planetary bodies themselves, and whatever that might be, I'm not sure, but it is
Mhm.
definitely amazing. We're getting on the lower end of time. Before we get to our lightning round, where I'm going to ask you some dumb questions so people can get to know you as a human better, I wanted to ask you about the channeling classes that you do too. You do them monthly still, correct?
I do a beginner's class once a month, or an advanced class. So it goes like, this month is a beginner's class, and it's on November 21st, and then December I'll do the advanced, and I'll just start over again in January, do a beginners. But then I also have a longer course that I'm starting up again December 3rd, um, and that will be 9 two-hour classes that will meet, once a month on Zoom, and with a private Facebook group so people can get together and practice channeling together.
That's
So that
powerful when people practice
yeah.
together. Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
so I'm excited. I think I like teaching channeling more than I like channeling. So,
really, that's amazing. I knew you've always
yeah.
loved it, but that's great.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like you said, I like to be myself too and talk. And I also think like if somebody else can bring something through and I can be a part of that and experience it, that's just so fun, you know.
Yeah, I think the most rewarding part of a channeler's job is to see someone take the information they've been given, whether by teaching or channeling, utilize it in their life and have a better journey because of it. And that's something, at least for me, that's been really powerful. And the reason I brought up the channeling class too is I wanted you to tell us your favorite story about a channeling class of someone who channeled something or something that you understood or unexpectedly, something fun for people to kind of understand a little bit about how crazy it can get in that the environment of trying to learn channeling.
Yeah, I'll definitely have revelations about channeling as I'm teaching the class, like things come to me that I never thought of before. And then because I've been doing it since 2013, consistently teaching it, it's like all of that has built over the years to make me a better channeling teacher. But I have one former student, Ina Lucas, who has gone on to become a full-time channeler and teacher and do it for work full time. Um, and that has been amazing to witness, like to see somebody grow from the time when she just would attend my little workshops in San Diego County with like 13 people at them most of the time, and to see her become the huge powerhouse that she is now with channeling. It's a just always fascinating because sometimes I'll see people channeling, or they'll tell me a story about what they did when they were practicing their channeling, and I'll think, wow, this person's more advanced than I am already.
Well, it's really rewarding too to see the practice of someone who's gone through a channeling class and learned how to channel and does it professionally. It's really profound to watch the experience of people growing. It's a
Hmm.
powerful thing. Thank you for sharing that too, brother. We are going to get to lightning round now. So if there's any question that comes up that you don't have an answer for or don't want to answer, just say skip and we'll move to the next thing.
Okay.
But I promise this is quite benevolent. Uh, all right. First question, as always, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, what's your favorite band and or song or both?
I'm gonna say, for band, Cold War Kids, which I used to listen to all the time and then just recently rediscovered, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I forgot how good these guys are."
Ooh, I've not heard of them. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Is there a song that sticks out in your mind that you like more than the
It's
rest?
called First.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely have to check that out. So what is your favorite food?
One that I almost never get to eat, it's called durian. It's a fruit. I'm a raw fooder, raw vegan, by the way, so, all my favorite foods are uncooked and fruit, vegetable, seed, or nut, but, yeah, it's, durian is this, really, intensely, creamy, like custardy, fruit that, is a delicacy and is, grown mostly in Thailand.
That's amazing. I've heard of them, but I didn't know what they look like, taste like. Because in Michigan, I mean, we're lucky to get oranges that aren't falling apart. So it's that's amazing. Um, when you have been around the world and you've seen every place that you've been to, what's your favorite place just to look at the beauty and be a part of in nature in that beauty?
Oh,
What's
that's
your
so
favorite?
easy. It's, Northern California, the redwoods.
Ooh, yeah, you're actually one of the second or third person who said the redwoods was one of their favorite.
Mhm. Redwood
I've never
forest.
been there. I want to go, so
Yeah.
that's a to do list. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Whew. Oh, this isn't gonna be so lightning. I'm gonna have to think about this one. Well, does mm, anything under 18 count as childhood?
Yeah, absolutely.
I once hit a walk-off home run in Little League. I think
Oh,
it may have been Babe Ruth league, like I was already 14 or 15. But yeah, I hit a home run that won the game, and it was like I was not leading up to that year, I was never like a great hitter or anything, and I just had this phenomenal season and something I never thought I would experience. So it was pretty cool.
that's amazing. Yeah, that would be quite the thrill. The excitement of everybody treating you like a god for the day.
Yeah.
That's well, great, man. I think that's all. I think that's all the questions we have. We have a few minutes left too, so I want to give you an opportunity. And before we get to that, I want to tell you first of all, thank you, brother, for coming on today. I know you're a busy dude. You've got family and work, and those things take up the majority of your time. So thank you for
Mm,
sharing that precious time with us. Also, thank you for being you. You're an amazing guy. We've been friends a long time, and I really appreciate who you are as a person. And I
thanks,
appreciate
buddy.
what you bring to the world. It's a great gift, and a lot of people get a lot from it. So thank you.
You're very
And
welcome, my
I
friend.
want thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And I want to now give you the floor. Some of the workshops that are coming up, I know you got the mega channeling class, and I think you touched on that a little bit. But what, uh, how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go? What can you offer to people who are interested in looking further in your work or seeing some of your channeling or whatever the case might be?
Well, if you go to my website, danielscranton.com, and that's easy to spell because Daniel's a kind of semi-common first name, and Scranton is a city in Pennsylvania where, you know, the office was based and the president is from. So you can find Scranton to spell pretty easily too. Um, and I'm also on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where I have thousands of videos on there that are all channeled pretty much. And yeah, that's where you can find me, and I've got an 11:11 portal, healing and manifestation event on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and you can get there by going to danielscranton.com/portal. And the mega course I mentioned earlier that starts December 3rd, that's at danielscranton.com/mega. So, um, lots and you know, I keep putting out new channelings from the Arcturians, usually 5 days a week unless I'm taking a vacation, but, yeah, I just keep, putting out new material and, hope that it resonates with people.
Yeah, it sure has, man. A lot of people have really flocked to your channels and your social medias with the things that you're sharing. And something interesting, the daily channelings that you share, you do them in written form on a lot of your social medias as well as
Yep,
creating place and you put up tons of videos too, which is great. Um, I I also wanted to let everybody know if you want to know how to spell Daniel Scranton, or if you want to check out any of those links there in the comment section to all the places where this is playing tonight. And it will be replayed on the new networks that we are in affiliation with. And I want to thank you again, brother, for coming on. Before we go to, there's one part we didn't cover, and that's the sound healing. Can you give a quick description of what that is and kind of what you do with that?
I, um I started channeling tones about, 2 years after I was channeling the creators already. They just start coming through me, and because I've heard you channel similar tones. With toning, one of our friends and colleagues, Wendy Kennedy, has done a lot of channeling about the power of tones and sounds, and, I just happened to be listening to her, one of her workshops where she talked about it for like 4 hours, or the Pleiadians did. And, they say, tones overtones can heal a person multidimensionally, and, light language is another big, Wendy Kennedy topic. She's the one who, or the Pleiadians again, are the ones who told me that that's what I was speaking when I started to channel, um, the light languages that I do. And so I sort of incorporate, when I do a healing, I incorporate both the channeled tones and the, channeled light language, because I know that these sounds work on us in ways that words are incapable of, that they contain activations and codes in them that can give a person, so much more than any other experience that they could have will give them. So, yeah, I just, I used to only channel the tones in the beginning part of my channeling, and then I realized, oh, I think these have other applications too. I think I can use them to activate people and heal people, and that's when I started doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Wendy was just on the show a couple of months ago, and we talked quite in depth about the sound vibrations themselves and how that turned into light language for her. And now she's extensively covers light language, and you know, I've never heard a light language expressed in such a way where you can hear, you know, with my time with Treb, I've heard a lot of ET language, like sounds of ET
Really,
speaking, and
really.
it's the most accurate connection to the ET language when I hear Wendy doing it. So she's absolutely amazing, and I
Mhm,
activated your part of that energy. I've not heard your light language yet because, as you know, I don't usually watch channeling. I haven't done
mhm.
for quite a few times, but you started doing that also in the last few years as well, haven't you?
No, I started doing it in 2011, so, 11 and a half years ago.
Jeez.
But yeah, no, Wendy's, she's in a league of her own, and, my light language is something that comes out differently every time. So it's, it's really fun. It's a fun thing to channel, and a lot of people are doing it now. But yeah, it's, thank God for her. I wouldn't know half of what I know about light language.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I will say, by far, you have the best toning, undertones, overtones, toning, tuning in general that I've ever heard. You have, and if any of you have not seen Daniel Channel, there's lots of movement, lots of energy that's going through him, but the toning itself will vibrate through your whole head, through your heart, through your solar plexus. It's really
Mm.
powerful. And when you're there live, it's extremely good. um like you can feel it through the resonance. When we did the channel panels, everyone in the room was just like, whoa, that's incredible. So I appreciate that. And now I feel like a jerk. I didn't even know that you had done the language through the time that I followed your channeling and watched and listened
Yeah,
to a
well,
bunch.
for
So
a long time, I didn't even know what to do with it. I was like, well, that happens sometimes, but then I started realizing, oh, when I'm doing healings on myself, I start speaking light language, so maybe it has healing properties too, and I started incorporating it more intentionally.
well, that's amazing. And again, brother, thank you for coming. We could keep talking for hours. Me and you are just good at talking. We've had lots of practice at it with one another too. Maybe next year we'll find some time where you're free if you
Sure,
want to come back, and we'll go more in depth with a lot of these topics.
for
But
sure.
thank you for coming, brother. Please send all my love to your family.
Will
Give them
do.
big hugs and love. And thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate it more than anything. And we'll definitely be in touch again, brother.
We will. I love you, Rob.
I love you too, brother. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, all of you who've been active in the chat. I do want to let you guys know the Matrix Mind Media is the one who has allowed us to simulcast, and actually ended up going on the slot that Matthew does, because he always does a 10, but he graciously allowed us to do this live stream. So join on right now, as we speak, as we're getting ready to go off air, he is going to start his show, and you can do it at the link here in the comments. It's also down in the description under Matrix Mind Media on the Facebook page, Matrix Mind Media. He will be live streaming immediately after we're done, and he's going to be talking about spiritual awakening versus spiritual enlightenment 101. A great thing, guys. So come on over there and join us. I'll be in the chat as well. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you again, brother. I love you guys so much. And I appreciate you, brother, on every level. So thank you again.
Same.
All right, guys, we will call it a night. Next week, we will be up in the air. We might have Ruben Langdon. We might not. If not, we'll have someone here, and we'll be announcing the rest of the December shows here in the next couple of weeks. We've gotten quite behind because of life in general, but we're there, and we love you guys so much. Thank you for showing up to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. Your host, Rob Gauthier, part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network, part of the Conscious Awakening Network, part of the Forbidden Knowledge News Network, and of course, all of you lovely people here from the Matrix Mind Media. Thank you for being here, as we're a part of that network as well, too. So thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being here. All my love, and we'll see you guys next week at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on the YouTubes. Love you guys, and see ya on the other side.